get started. Thanks everybody for joining the weekly Harbor Call. Today's call is technology themed. We're going to be focusing on Morningstar Office and taking a look at some of the underutilized features within the system. I'm really excited for today's call. We're going to be featuring some back office personnel as well as a few of our advisors for their insight on the system. We're going to be taking a look at it from an angle of working with prospects and gaining business that way, as well as how to leverage Morningstar to just better service your existing clients. So I think we have a lot of good pieces of information in there for our current users and for anybody that might be interested in using it. Before we officially get started and hop in, do have an announcement to make. Earlier this week, we confirmed a new vendor partnership that is technology themed, and that's going to be with Zacks Professional Services, which features Zacks Advisor Tools. So some of you may be aware of Zacks Advisor Tools. For anyone that isn't, it's an online research platform that allows for investment research, security selection, and has their own proprietary research on stocks, mutual funds, ETFs. They also include a predictive Zacks rank that they use, as well as it gives you access to all their market strategy reports, asset class screening, charting, news, and quotes. So there's a lot of information that provides on there. What we were particularly impressed with was that on that platform, they also have Zacks equity and ETF model portfolios, which includes their popular earnings certain stock portfolios, and the model holdings and trading rules. These are all updated on a quarterly basis, and they can be executed on Schwab and TD. Aaron and I were really impressed with this. I think there's a lot of our advisors that are going to find value with that as well. So this is just serving as an initial announcement. We are going to be having an official press release coming up later this month, as well as a webinar that's specifically going to be looking at Zacks services, and you can find a lot more information on that. So as we get closer, we'll release some more information and give you more details, but just wanted to make an initial announcement here because I think it's a really exciting partnership, and it's a really great product. I think a lot of our advisors are going to benefit from using. So that being said, we're going to actually hop in to our call here today. So like I said before, we're going to be looking at some more what I feel are underutilized features within Morningstar. To start things off, even though we're a technology theme today, you'll see we have Kyle Kapitsky here joining us. So he's our honorary technology member today. And the reason why I'm having Kyle join here to help kick things off, one of the items within Morningstar Office that I think more of our advisors would benefit from knowing, one of those features is the VA research that's included within the research section within Morningstar. Kyle utilizes this within Morningstar from a compliance standpoint to help get all the information that he needs on VAs. So I was actually going to start things off, have Kyle take us through what he looks at within this feature within Morningstar and help shed some light on that. So Kyle, if you'd like to take it away here, and I'll let you go ahead and share your screen as well.
All right, sounds good. Thank you, Mike. Appreciate it. Yeah, as Mike said, part of my job is going over VAs and VA transactions in general. For that, some of them can be a little bit complex if you're going from one VA to another, and one has a particular rider on it, and you're going to a new rider. We want to see, is this new rider, is this new product benefiting the client in the ways that is being stated on the forms, and everything is in the client's best interest. So I use the VA research that's on Morningstar for that, as well as calling the companies to double check certain things here and there. But as you'll notice, a lot of the times Morningstar is pretty darn up to date, and you can get a lot of information by just going to the VA research button on Morningstar rather than having to make a call to a particular company and then sitting on hold in their service center call center on hold for 20 minutes or whatever that may be. So let me share my screen here and you guys will see what I'm talking about. And all right, Mike, can you see my screen?
Yes, all good.
Okay. All right. Let me go to Morningstar here. So let me just go back, and this is kind of well, this isn't the home screen for Morningstar. This would be the home screen for Morningstar. But as you'll see down here, and now it probably is all frozen on me. I guess I shouldn't have clicked on that. But as you'll see down here, there is a button for Morningstar, and it's now frozen on me for a second. So let me just jump into the actual pop-ups that you'll get when you go into those while this loads for us, because it will come back. I've had this happen many times before. When you get into the Morningstar research, and I'll show you that once that finally comes up, but this is ultimately what comes up when you search for a particular product. And I've just pulled up the Perspective 2 from Jackson. It's one of our reps' most prominently used VA, whether that be the Perspective 2 or the Advisor Perspective 2. Same thing here, just in a different shell. As you'll see, there's a lot of information on this very first home screen. Gives you the contract information, the surrender schedule, the charges, the M&E right here. You have the max and mid ages that you can go into, and then if you see right here, as I've highlighted, it's the max annuitization age if that is a big deal in your particular transaction. Number of sub-accounts, over 120 or 118 here in this case. You'll see the contract operations, what happens if you have a joint owner, and then at the death of a certain person. The big thing here I want to show you, though, is this tab up here, and we'll go to investment options first, but this is all the sub-accounts that it has, and it goes through the Morningstar ratings, the overall rating, the 1-year return, and then it even has the expense ratios of each of the funds. But the big thing here that I always click on is the benefits. And this actually shows the riders that are on each particular contract. For that, if say you're going into the Perspective 2 here at Jackson, you want to go into the Lifeguard Freedom Accelerator single life. It has the expense ratio and then how that's assessed and how it's calculated, whether that be off the benefit base or the contract value. It has your issue ages and then the benefit description, which is a huge thing here. Generally, you can read through it and figure out exactly what this rider does and what it entails. In this case, if you were a 65-year-old, you'd be getting 4.75% for life. And then every time, in this case, every time the withdrawal benefit is deferred for a year, you step up. So at 65, if you defer it for 2 years, you'll get an extra 25 basis points times 2, which is 50 basis points on top of that 4.75%. So it'd be 5.25 for life. And I'm not going into that this is a great rider or anything, but I'm just showing you kind of how it's determined. And then if there is a step of provision, or as I call it, a ratchet to the benefit base, it would be here. And I can actually show you that on the nationwide that I pulled up as well. But that also talks about the benefit base, if there's a cap on it, what are the impact of withdrawals, if there's an excess withdrawal that may potentially blow up the rider, and then if it's RMD friendly. In the case of Jackson, their whole spiel is they're 100% open architecture, and they have zero investment restrictions, which isn't the case at some other firms, but if it's blank here, that basically means that there's nothing, no other considerations, no other restraints on that particular rider. and as you'll see, I just clicked out of that, but you can go into anything. You can go into if they have a death benefit. Lifeguard Freedom Flex DB is for some reason a huge seller recently that we've seen come through, which in my opinion gets extra scrutiny. But all these ones that have a close date means that those riders are no longer available. But what I do here is if, let's just say for the sake of arguments, a transaction comes through and you're leaving a particular Jackson Perspective 2 with a Freedom Flex net that was sold in 2015. Well, I'm going to click on this one to see exactly what that rider did in 2015, and then how that compares to the new potential VA. So that's kind of how this is used. As you'll see, Jackson has a whole bunch of riders that they've kind of gone away from and have now gone into these. So these that don't have the close dates are still open to get into. One last thing that I want to point out on this particular screen is this printer button. If you want to create a report, you certainly can. You can actually click on the living benefit. Let's just click on the living benefit that we just went through. If you want to click on the basic death benefit, or if you want to put on an extra death benefit, maybe it's a 5% roll-up death benefit, you can actually generate a report and it will pop up as a PDF for you, which is great if you want to kind of compare. Let me see here if Morningstar is back up finally. Okay, here we go. So this is the home screen for Morningstar, and I'm going to finally show you, now that this is loaded, how to get into the research. So the research button I've clicked on, it pops up this whole thing here. And as you'll see, it's not just VA research. It's open-ended funds or mutual funds, you name it, indexes, exchange-traded funds, stocks, VAs. This is kind of where we're at. So you click on VAs, and it brings down this. There's VAs, and then there's VA sub-accounts. I always click on variable annuities, and then you'll want to click on United States variable annuities. Pops up every single VA that's in this particular platform. And this has been, I think I've gotten VAs back from 1995 I looked at. So this is pretty robust. The way that I get to a particular product, and this helps when you actually know the name of the product, but let's just say for the sake of arguments, you want to look at the Perspective 2. I'm going to go to the search bar here at the top, and I'm going to type in perspective or any form of perspective, and it comes up with a whole bunch of names that have perspective in it. Here's a Perspective Advisory 2. We're going to look at Perspective 2, and here's your 7-year. You'll want to click on that, and then obviously for New York, they always have the NY next to it. The old Perspective L product is right here, but if you click on that, this will pop up to right here. This is what you're going to get when you click on that link. So one last thing I want to show you, if for some reason you don't know the name of the product, but you want to look at what it probably had, maybe it's an old product and you don't know it anymore, you can actually click on search here. And what I do is I always try and search for the insurance company. So you'll click here to start a new search, insurance company equals, and this will automatically pop up for you. And you'll want to type in the name of the insurance company. So let's go with let's do Global Atlantic. Oh, that one doesn't come up, great. Nationwide. So here's Nationwide, and you'll have Nationwide Life and Annuity Insurance, and then there's Nationwide Life Insurance Company, which is kind of the main one here. It'll fill in here, and then you'll have the value, and you'll run that search. Now there's 108 items found. Click OK, and this brings up all of the Nationwide annuities that have been through this platform. Here's the Nationwide, sorry, can't speak today. Destination B 2.0, your old BOA, Best of America, your Future, the Achiever, all of the things that you could possibly imagine that Nationwide had or have sold in at least since 1997, and I'm saying 96 here. So you can click on all of these different things, and it's a great tool. From what I'm understanding from Mike, this is the default. So you guys, if you've chosen the default and you're paying the full price for Morningstar, this is at your fingertips anytime you log into Morningstar. So If you have questions or you need a little further tutorial, certainly give me a call and I'll walk you through it. But that's kind of all I had in a nutshell. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen. Were there any quick questions on that off the bat that I'm seeing here? I don't see any questions. That's all I have. Mike, I can kind of pass it back to you then.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks, Kyle. Thanks for going through that and showing that great feature in Morningstar. We did have a question from Aaron Hager, actually, just addressing or asking, can advisors use the web-only version of Morningstar to avoid freezing, just as Kyle had experienced, and if so, what are the negatives? So that's actually a good question. If you currently are a user of Morningstar, you technically have the ability to log into the web-based version as well as the desktop. So if you log into the web-based version, it's aesthetically more updated, it looks a lot more modern, and you're most likely not going to run into some of those freezing issues that you might get from time to time. That's especially good for the research side too. It's all online based and you can access everything right from there. In terms of any drawbacks currently with the web-based version, it really just comes down to that it is still pretty new and they're constantly making tweaks to it and adding features. So right now, the desktop version has the full range of features, including all reports, including Report Studio, the full range of features. The web-based version still doesn't have quite all the functionality. I think some of the reports aren't on there, and Report Studio isn't on there, but they're constantly adding features, and it's certainly not going away anytime soon. And at the end of the call, when we send out our follow-up email, I'll send out a link to that. And if anybody that's interested in using the cloud-based version, which again has the same information, just aesthetic a little bit different, we can answer any questions you have on that. Yeah, I'm gonna move on to the next subject here. I'll go ahead and share my screen this time. So again, on the theme of some underutilized features within the system, I'd like to go ahead and show you and touch upon how to use custom benchmarks inside of Morningstar. I know some of our advisors do take advantage of this, but I feel like it's one of those things that not a whole lot of advisors fully take advantage of. And where this is beneficial is, first of all, you have the ability to edit whatever benchmark you'd like to use on reports. And then you have the ability to then create your own benchmark. So you can really have it be a great comparison tool to the portfolio that you have for your client. Because by default, the Morningstar benchmark is essentially equivalent to the S&P 500. While that might be really good for some of your clients, if you have some conservative clients, it's not really a benchmark that's going to make sense to compare your performance to and asset allocation, things like that. So this allows you to take things to the next level, especially from a reporting standpoint. So to edit or create custom benchmarks, you're going to navigate to the Workspace tab. You'll see here within these subfolders and select benchmarks. So right from this page, you can actually create a custom benchmark. You see I've already created one here, this custom S&P 500 and US bonds. If I want to create a brand new one, all I have to do is select this new button. It will allow me to just create a name for the benchmark and then create it. I'm going to open up the one I just created here as an example. So you can see I have it, 50-50 between the S&P 500 and US bonds. If I want to edit this in the screen, all I have to do is go to Add Holding, and it'll bring me back to that initial screen when I was creating my custom benchmark. So from here, I can add technically as many securities or indexes that I want within the custom benchmark field. So if you just want to have a combination of benchmarks or indexes out there combined together to to formulate your benchmark, you can do that. You can have a benchmark created out of any mutual fund, ETF, stock. You get really creative with it. Ultimately, it's not so much about how complicated you make it, but really just making one that matches what your portfolio is aiming to do, and that ultimately is the main goal of that benchmark. So in this case, you can create it by a weighted percentage or just by dollar amount. So that's what I like doing here. I just made it 50-50 between both of them, making a bit of a balanced portfolio, and then I can hit finish to close that out. Now, in terms of using the benchmark, which is ultimately what we want to do, there's a couple different places that you can use it, each by varying levels of how they impact the system. So, for one thing, you can actually edit your default benchmark in your Morningstar system. That's going to be used on any report by default. So in other words, if you don't make any additional changes. So if I want to do that, I could actually go up to the Tools tab at the very top of my screen, go to Settings, set Default Account Benchmark. So from here, you'll see it's going to show that Morningstar US Market Benchmark. If I want to change that, select from this drop down, go to Select Benchmark. And then from the drop down of security choices, you see right above mutual funds is actually Custom Benchmark. If I choose that and then just hit the Go button to search, it'll bring up any custom benchmark I've created. Then I can just simply choose my custom benchmark here and hit OK. And that will make it the default benchmark of the entire system. Now, you may not want that for the entire system. You might want to just have it per like a specific client, for example, that utilizing a specific benchmark might be really beneficial. If I navigate to client management here, I can actually set a default benchmark for a specific client as well. So if I double click on that client, then navigate to client default settings right here, I can then set a default benchmark for that client. So if I were to then run a report, we'll use that default benchmark that I have in there. And again, in setting the default benchmark, I can choose from the custom benchmark I created, or want to make sure I point this out, I can actually choose from any index that exists out there, essentially. Anything you can think of, Morningstar is very likely going to have it. So if I chose popular indexes in US dollars, for example, instead of a custom benchmark, if I just typed in S&P, I should bring up, for example, all of the S&P indexes that exist out there. So if I just want to set one of these, have that be used for this client moving forward, all I have to do is select one, hit OK, and we're good to go on here. You can even have secondary and tertiary benchmarks. Some Morningstar reports allow for more than one benchmark to be used, so that's what that would be for. But again, just select the benchmark here and hit save to save your changes. Now, on an even more deeper level, if you didn't want to set a default, but just simply want to run a report and just change the benchmark for a one-off report, which would also be valuable, you can also do that. If I go to reports and then client return summary, this is just an example report. It's a lot of different reports you can run in Morningstar, but you'll see one of the settings that you can edit here is the primary benchmark. So if I just want to change the benchmark for this one-off report I'm running, I can just edit that right here. Again, go to select benchmark, and from here I can either choose a custom benchmark that I created, or just an existing benchmark or index within Morningstar's database. So I think that's a really valuable piece of information to know, just simply because, again, by default, it's going to be that Morningstar US market benchmark, and it may just make a lot of sense to have a more accurate benchmark in there. So it's good to know you can edit that information. All right. I'm going to go ahead and move on to the next item I was going to discuss here, and that's going to be creating hypothetical illustrations and reports in Morningstar. So these are generated a little bit separately from your client reports that you generate in Morningstar. These are really valuable for those opportunities when you're working with prospects or even current client that might have additional business and you're looking to win that additional business. One of our advisors, Mark Herding, has actually had a lot of success using this. And so I'm going to first go ahead and show how to access that in Morningstar, how to create it. And then we're going to have Mark hop in and give just a little bit of insight on how he's used them and where finds the value there. So if I wanted to first just access these hypothetical illustrations, there's a couple places I can do that. Easiest way is right off the top here under Tools. You'll see it's the first choice, which is hypothetical illustration. So this is going to bring up the tool. That does look a little bit different than other tools within Morningstar. But what this allows us to do is essentially build out a model portfolio. We can choose any investment or any security, I should say, that you want to add. I'm going to actually upload one that I previously created, which is worth pointing out because you had the ability to save these once you build them out. So you don't have to reinvent the wheel every time. You have some go-to portfolios. You can actually just open them and load them again. I'm going to do that by just going to File, Open. You'll see here, once I search, I can pull up a previous example that I was working on, previous portfolio, hit OK, and we'll load that in. So just a quick run through from the screen of how you can build these out. So you can get pretty specific, and there's a lot of things you can play around with. From the Investments tab here, this is where we can add the investments or securities that we want within our portfolio. See, I already have these 4 securities added down here. If I want to add any additional ones right from this page here, or the search tool, I have US mutual funds selected. I can change the category I might be looking for. But if I just typed in a ticker, if I go to US stock, for example, and just type in Apple, something very simple, you'll see it comes up right away. If you didn't know the ticker offhand, you also have this magnifying glass you can select, and that'll bring up an additional way to search. Now, if I wanted to then move along here, go to this Buy tab, that allows you to create the initial investment into the model portfolio. The hypothetical illustration is going to basically look back in time based on the date range that you have set there. So in this example, I have my start date going back to 2015. If I want to update this end date, say to last month end, say 7/31, and hit enter, that will update the rest of the securities here. I can actually do this individually by security. I can do apply to all. But this essentially affects the date range of your illustration that you're going to generate. If I continue on here to the Advanced Buy and Sell tab, this is where you can actually even edit the amount of money that is being invested into the portfolio. So if you know that if a client's going to be making regular contributions, or alternatively, regular withdrawals as well, that can be edited from this page. You can even determine the frequency that those additions or withdrawals are being made. Sometimes, might be a monthly thing, might just be an annual withdrawal that they make at the end of the year. That's something that can be edited here as well by using these drop downs. So under the type, you can choose to invest or you can withdraw. You can even do a withdrawal percentage if you didn't have a specific dollar amount. We just wanted to do it by percentage, say they're withdrawing 5% on a annual basis. You can edit that here as well, and then change the frequency as needed. So there's a lot of information you can edit there. If I go to the Reinvest and Rebalancing tab, they give you the ability to have a rebalance set you to have, depending on the frequency you choose, you can have monthly, quarterly, or even annually, anything listed here. And then you can then change the rebalance threshold. So that basically keeps the balance of the initial portfolio that you created, have it, hypothetically, the account gets rebalanced to match the portfolio that you created in the initial allocation. So again, the whole idea here is to really replicate what the client's portfolio would be doing over time. And that's, again, allows you to get really detailed here. If I keep moving along these tabs before we end up generating the report, if I go to fees, if you know that there are annual fees, like asset-based fee, you can add that in here. There's even sales fees. Anything that you want to add in there, you can do that. Again, all of these at the end of the day are optional in terms of how detailed you want to get, but you know that there's going to be a standard fee and be as transparent as possible there. Then if I go into the taxes tab, I can even do that. And if I do specifically the tax rate and that information, we can either edit this here as well. That information might be a little hard to come by. So again, it's optional at the end of the day, but if you have that information available, you want to add that in, the report will take that into consideration. So once I've gone in and I've edited my information here, I can go to the report options, and from here we can give, we can customize what it's actually going to generate on the report, including just the title of the report to match your client name. And you can play around with what you want to be on the report. If you want to include a benchmark or not include one, basically all these data points here you can check or uncheck. There's also some additional information. So by default, it's going to generate its default report. That's also include a portfolio snapshot, stock intersection. You can add additional pages. You can take away pages. So there's a lot to customize and really edit to your liking. But once we're all set here, I'm going to select generate report just to show you an example of what that's going to look like. And I'll expand this out for us here. But once that's generated, you're going to see a lot of different visuals and data points, but the visual here to look at shows how your portfolio is done compared to a benchmark if you choose to have that. Then, of course, the net amount that has been invested. So where this is really powerful, and this is some of the things that Mark is going to get into here, when you have, we can clearly show the amount that they've contributed over time compared to the amount that the portfolio has grown during that time period. It's a lot of, powerful information that you can show that you might otherwise wouldn't be able to explain, certainly from a visual standpoint. It's going to give the performance as well, some different values to analyze with that. You can show over time, with each year, the different changes in value that portfolio had, depending on those parameters that you have set, as well as just additional visuals to see how each security has grown individually over time, as well as changes in asset allocation, depending on how you set that up. And then each individual security, see how that has performed over time. And then, like I said, if you want to include, a portfolio X-ray report, as well as a snapshot report, you can do that. But I would like to have Mark hop on the call here briefly, just to talk about his use of this report. And I know that Mark has used this in conjunction with a Riskalyze report as well. I do have a couple of those examples that we can take a look at, Mark. But yeah, if you just wanted to maybe hop on and talk about how you've used the hypothetical illustration, that would be great.
Sure. Okay. Hey, thanks, Mike. I think we're always trying to simplify our practice and find repeatable tools that you can use with clients and have success. And over the last couple of years, I've had quite a few clients that are on the edge of retirement or transitioning into retirement. And we're trying to find portfolios that can support a 5% withdrawal. And American Balance has been a core holding of mine for many, many years. And I've been trying to figure out what growth fund I could pair it with to support a good long-term withdrawal scenario. And I started using Franklin Dynatech a couple of years ago. And if you put these two funds together in an 80-20 combination, 80% American Balance and 20% Franklin Dynatech, and you go back to the year 2000, you can see in the hypothetical that we prepared, you put $1 million in, and over that 20-year period, you withdraw 1.3 million. And you can see the red line, the portfolio continues to grow. And today you're close to, you're just a little bit over $2 million. So the client can have some sense, of course, history is no guarantee, right? But they have some sense of, hey, if I have this core holding in my portfolio, I can sustain my 5% withdrawal and actually grow my asset base for my clients. And I've used this portfolio over the last couple of years, and this year alone, I brought in 3 new IRAs that total about $4 million of new money for us by helping clients transition into retirement and feel comfortable with this portfolio as a withdrawal stream. Now, of course, my clients are messy. Some structured notes to the portfolio, and I let them pick some stock, right? But I kind of limit that and use this to bring them back to, hey, remember our core is 80-20, so we don't want to get too far away from it. So this is a really good benchmark to keep them in line. And then, as Mike said, way up here because we added too much in individual stocks. We need to take some profit and go back to American Balance a little bit heavier maybe, and have that be our core holding again. But those two reports have been really great sales tools for me over the last couple of years to gather new assets and help people have this to turn on a 5% withdrawal.
Yeah, thanks, Mark. And
Mike, anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, I was just going to show an example of the risk-wise report as well, which again, of course, is completely separate from Morningstar, but just who mentioned that it obviously shows, it's risk-wise is all about risk, and it shows it's very supplemental to the Morningstar report. But if there's anything you wanted to mention on that, we could take a look. But I know that it's just a good report to use in conjunction, especially if you're already a risk-wise user and have Morningstar. You can actually use them both together to kind of maximize both.
Right. And then the other two, since we're talking about Morningstar today, the other two reports that I use with every single client meeting, in fact, I pull them up even before I make a phone call, is I run the client return summary, which is the pie chart. And then we've done what Mike suggested, is we've added a custom benchmark, and we just use those drop-down portfolios to match the right equity allocation, right? Is it 65-35? Is it 50-50? And we use that pie chart to show how we are doing against the benchmark. And then I also like to use performance by security, and that way, you can see some stocks that maybe are doing great, and you can see some stocks or ETFs that are holding your portfolio back. And it's a really good tool, whether you're managing the portfolio yourself and you're trying to make decisions, or you're having a client meeting and you're trying to decide, do we take profits here, or this thing's down 20%, do we just cut our losses and move on, or do we buy more? So that performance by security report has also been really helpful in client meetings. So those are the ways that I've been using Morningstar. But these hypotheticals that we created about a year and a half ago, have been fantastic tools to help clients gain confidence moving into retirement and gather new assets for us.
Yeah, thanks, Mark. That's appreciate you hopping on to give your own experience with Morningstar and where you're how you're getting the most out of the system. I think you're finding really great ways to use it. And again, that hypothetical illustrator, for anyone that's interested in using it, I'm happy to work with you on that. And we can really narrow it down to show what you want to show, and
Very good.
a lot.
Thanks, Mike.
To use. Yeah, thanks, Mark. So just for the sake of time here, we're gonna keep going. We'll wrap it up shortly, but the hypothetical illustration I think is really good for the prospect side, or if you're trying to gain new business. And I actually want to have one more advisor today hop on the call to give his perspective on Morningstar as well, and that'd be Chris Yard. Thanks for joining us, Chris. I know that you've used Morningstar for a while as well, and I believe you use it, to in multiple ways, of course, but servicing current clients and using it for client meetings. I know you find value there, and just want to hear, your experience. I know that I think you utilized the snapshot report, possibly among others, and yeah, just love to hear your insight on that.
Hey guys, just talking about it the whole time, but I have Morningstar pulled up in the back of my screen here. Sorry, I will turn up this is the first time on my new laptop for this. But yeah, we do client management tab on your left. Every single review that we do a snapshot of where they're at. So we can update every single time we're with them to show, reports, analytical reports, snapshot. And like you said, Mike, you can customize, you can do, you can add disclosure, you can take it off, you can do a classic layout. It's just a great tool to show, hey, this is what your portfolio has done over the last 3 months, 1 year, 5 year, or 3 or 5 year, 10-year periods. And clients love the visual. There's a bunch of information on there, so great for maybe some engineering clients. But if it's just for a general client, I mean, we highlight just a few things. Kind of your top left, you're looking at there, the cash, U.S. stock, non-U.S. stock, bond. We highlight that to show, hey, this is the percentage you're in. The equity style that Mike has over is Q right there. The fixed income style, again, it's just whatever we're trying to accomplish and show to help them understand what we're doing with the portfolio. We don't get into much anything else on there unless, again, it's sometimes an engineering client that wants to get into it. But we just look at, again, the performance part there, just a little bit scrolling. So we love this part, not just performance, return, and you can have the benchmark on whatever you want, kind of like Mike was doing. But recently, what we liked, again, we've had a great run up last 10 years, but we like to show the circle and highlight the worst. It says the best and worst time periods right there, but we like to do the worst 3 months, worst 1 year, and worst 3 years. Really to indicate, okay, how did 08 make you feel? How would that, if it happened again? This is what our portfolio has technically done and shown those worst periods, but how does it make you feel? How would you react? What would you want me to do about it if that happens again? So it's just great, tool. Morningstar is just a wonderful tool. We've been using it the whole time, but a great way to just engage with your clients. I won't touch on that part anymore, but the workspace that Mike was in before, we do model portfolios or static model portfolios. You kind of get in there and then static. Because this is where we put every single, if I'm making portfolios, we can add and delete anything in those. But this is also where if we have a referral and we want to show them, hey, this is what your portfolio is. I'm just the messenger. And we'll do a risk tolerance questionnaire and say, hey, from our conversations and where your risk tolerance is on here, this is where your portfolio is at. It's 85% in the market, and your risk tolerance is more 60% or 55%. Maybe we need to adjust that. This is why you come to us. This is why you us as an advisor. So I like that. Again, it shows a lot of comparisons. I had a couple notes on here, but Those are the biggest things. Each client review, we use it. Every new client will do their portfolios to show what the difference is. And yeah, we don't even utilize it as much as we should. But again, time management, we use it for the main things that we got. But it's great to see Mike go through that and Kyle. So thanks, guys.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. I think you brought up a lot of really good points there. Snapshot report, there's obviously a lot of information there, but really using it for those talking points that you're focused on, is important. And then, of course, as you say, the creating model portfolios is such a powerful tool, and there's a whole lot more we could even get into on that. We've had a lot of advisors have a lot of success utilizing that. Touching on those points that you mentioned, you can also do a comparison type of report in the system. And I'd be happy to help anybody go into that in a little bit more detail. But Chris, you brought up a good point as well, feeling that maybe you use it for what you use it for, and there's probably other things you can get out of the system. I know that's kind of what we talked about a little bit today, but I want to stress too, that in terms with technology, sometimes that is the case, and that's okay. It's always good to try to get the most out of the system, but at the end of the day, as long as you are using it for what it's going to benefit you for the most, and that you're getting the most value out of it for your needs, that's what it ultimately comes down to. So I like to think of it as focus on those areas that you get the most benefit and value out of, and then just build from there. Because at the end of the day, if it's not saving you time or making your life easier, more efficient, then you don't necessarily have to use every tool in there, but focus on those ones you can find benefit from. And then, of course, people like myself, we have Jay at Morningstar as well. He's a great resource. We can help you, take it to the next level if you're looking for more features that are already inside of the system. So, yeah, that's pretty much going to wrap it up here today. Going to take a look and see if we have any questions. Looks like we had one question from Emily. I'm just asking if you build a model portfolio on risk-wise, if they can be loaded into hypothetical reports in Morningstar or vice versa. I have to double check on that. I know that there are some import and export features on both systems. They're not necessarily connected in that way, I don't think. I'll double check on that for sure. So there very well might be a more efficient way than just retyping in both systems. So that's a great question. I'll definitely follow up on that. Otherwise, if anybody has any additional questions, feel free to ask now. I know we're going a little bit over time, but want to reiterate too that you can always reach out to me individually if you have questions on Morningstar. We do have a Morningstar email that we've been utilizing more and more. If you have questions or any concerns or anything that needs to be troubleshooted, that's morningstar@harborinv.com. You can always reach out to me as well. The benefit of having that email, it just allows for, if I'm out of the office or if other people are out of the office, we can all kind of make sure nothing gets missed. One thing I want to mention as well, just since we're on this topic, with Morningstar, we do have 3 tiers of pricing currently that we allow for. So the full version of Morningstar comes at $350 a month. That's going to have all the full functionality. We have the lighter version, which comes at $250 a month. That essentially takes away the research components, but does allow for all the client reporting. And then the newly instated version that we have that comes at $150 a month, it essentially allows you to use Morningstar to connect to Redtail for the client data, and then from Redtail you can send that data to other programs that it's integrated with, like eMoney or Money Guide Pro, for example. That wouldn't give you access to Morningstar. It's really just getting all the client account data feeding into the system. We've had some advisors take that route because that's mainly what they were looking for, and they've had success with that. So if you have any questions on that, let me know. Again, that's just something new that we're rolling out, and I'll be happy to help you have any questions. So I don't think I saw any more questions come in. Just want to thank Kyle, Mark Herding, and Chris Yard again for joining our call today. Really, really appreciate you guys joining and sharing your insight. It's extremely valuable, so really appreciate that. And of course, looking forward to seeing everybody soon, hopefully at the Harbor Conference. And otherwise, have a great day, and we'll talk to you soon.